A lot of people pretend that they're oppressed by the government. Our next guest is actually suffering government oppression, very real. We're going to show that to you. Derek Myers joins us. He's the editor-in-chief of Scioto Valley Guardian in Ohio. And the government has illegally seized his laptop and prevented him from doing what he has a constitutional right to do through the First Amendment. So Derek, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. So tell us what trial you were covering and what caused the government to seize your laptop and to charge you with a felony.
Yeah, it's actually what's been dubbed by state prosecutors as Ohio's worst homicide, where 8 people was murdered, known as the Rodin homicide, by another family, the Wagner family. And it was the son, George Wagner, the first to go on trial. This is a $4 million trial, one of the most expensive, they say the most expensive rather, in the state's history. It's been 6 years in the making, and we finally went, and we're now in our 10th week of trial. So naturally, we and all the local media wanted to cover this story that was international when it broke in 2016. And the trial was in its 6th week, I think, 7th week when our equipment was seized.
So what was their ostensible reason for seizing your equipment?
So in the state of Ohio, the Supreme Court of Ohio makes the rules and regulations that the lower courts, such as the Common Pleas Court in this case, have to follow. And there's a rule that's in dispute called Rule 12. And basically what it says is that news media shall be permitted to broadcast from the courtroom court trials. In this particular case, this was the first time in recent history that we've known a judge in the state of Ohio to interpret a footnote that says a witness on the stand may opt out, including co-defendants, meaning that they cannot be recorded by the news media if they so choose. Most other courts in the state of Ohio make a compromise. For example, if somebody doesn't want to be shown on TV, then we can stream their audio. And so because we were streaming on our digital platforms, we were streaming the trial in its entirety. And then when a witness opted out, we would have to go to black, and we would be hours, if not days of black. And it was crazy for us and hard for the TV stations as well. So we and 6 other news outlets sued the judge in the appellate court, won a temporary order that said he had to hold hearings and that he couldn't simply just ban witnesses from testifying on camera. He held a hearing. He said witnesses couldn't testify. One of the co-defendants, Jake Wagner, arguably the mastermind behind the 8 homicides, he took the stand to testify against his brother. Well, I was out of the country that day, so I wasn't able to be in the courtroom. I did have a reporter there, and we had, obviously, the TV stations were all there, and we had the pool reports. Jake Wagner opted out. Of course, he killed 8 people. He's admitted to that, and he didn't want to be on TV. A few days later, when I returned back to the States, I had an email from a source who said that they had recordings of the testimony from inside the courtroom of Jake Wagner, where he's admitting to killing 8 people. So we assessed the recordings. We had several hours. We condensed it down to a 10-minute version, and we published it on our website. That was on a Friday. The following Monday, added a nationwide arrest warrant for a 4th-degree felony, which is punishable by 18 months in jail for wiretapping.
So you didn't record it. Someone else recorded it and passed it on to you. Isn't it well-established law that if a reporter gets a piece of information, even if the original recording was illegal? In fact, it just happened with the LA Times here in Los Angeles, where the city council members were recorded, and you can't really do that without their permission. But when whoever recorded it passed it on to the LA Times, they could publish it because they're not the ones that broke the law. Isn't that well-established law in Ohio and everywhere else too?
Yeah, so not only is that state law in Ohio, a journalism shield law, there's federal shield laws that shield journalists. And then there's Supreme Court precedents by the United States Supreme Court in the case of Barnicki v. Vopper, which is the case that helped the LA Times, which says if a source passes something on to us, just like you said, we can publish that. And in fact, the Supreme Court cited the exact statute. The United States Supreme Court, Cenk, cited the same exact sub-statute that I'm charged under, A3, in their dissent that says that that I cannot be, or any journalist cannot be charged for this in the case that happened. But they didn't stop just there. I didn't just get charged. They seized our laptops, and they seized my personal cell phone and my work cell phone. under a search warrant, which in itself is a whole nother issue because search warrants do not apply to journalists in the state of Ohio or on the federal level because of shield laws. To make matters even worse, the search warrant, even if it was valid, was expired by 2 days. It only covered a laptop. It didn't cover cell phones. So even had they had a valid search warrant, it didn't apply because it didn't cover the products that they actually physically seized. So that means that the Pike County Sheriff's Office here, they weaponized an expired search warrant and they hit a dubious trifecta. They violated the Constitution, they violated state law, and they also violated federal law in all ways possible. So it's not just one mess up here. There's multiple ways they've messed up. They seized our equipment. I'm still facing a felony, all in an attempt to find out who recorded open courtroom testimony.
Yeah, so Derek could get up to 18 months in prison. I mean, it's a felony. It's a serious crime that he's being charged with. So there are things that are not in dispute. The warrant definitely did not cover his cell phone, yet they seized it anyway. The warrant was definitely expired, yet they executed it anyway. Already on that, there's no question at all that they should not be holding your material and that they can't charge you with a crime. There's just absolutely no question. But even if that stuff weren't the case, the Committee to Protect Journalists, a very serious organization, has come out very forcefully on your side. What's the point that they're making, Derek, about this case?
We're very thankful for the support of the CPJ. They are an organization that protects the First Amendment, and they're condemning this arrest and the search warrant. They're calling for the immediate release of our equipment, and they're also calling for the dismissal of the charges. Where things stand right now for my charges, they're pending a grand jury in the state of Ohio. They have 60 days to present this to a grand jury, and then they'll return a bill or a no bill, and then we'll go through the criminal process. But CPJ is just one of the organizations out of many who have called for the dismissal of these charges, citing those state, federal statutes, as well as that Supreme Court ruling that helped the LA Times publish that city council recording. And so far, the local authorities just are not listening and doing anything. They continue to hold our equipment hostage, and we're not able to effectively do our job. We haven't been able to cover the trial since the 2nd of November when our equipment was seized. So,
Derek, why do you think they're holding the equipment? Do you think that they're searching it right now? Because they've got to know they can't actually charge you. I mean, that case is gonna fall apart on the day one, minute one, when the lawyer says there was no warrant for this, and even if there was, the warrant was expired. They have a 0% chance of winning. So do you think at this point they're basically illegally downloading the information on your laptop and your phones to try to catch the person who did the recording, even though they know they can't? Because they figure it's fruit of a poisonous tree. We know we can't use it in court, but at least we'll know the guy, and in a sense, they're breaking the law.
That's correct. So the state statutes and the federal statutes that we've cited in this interview extend to the protection of journalists. The person who recorded this was not a journalist, and so they do not have the protection that we have. So they could very well be charged, and that's exactly what law enforcement's trying to do, which is what you stated. They're trying to find out who recorded this. In fact, they came to me, they came to my lawyers, and they said, "Hey, give up your source. We'll work with you. We'll talk about dismissing your charges, but we want to know, was it a deputy sheriff? Was it a court employee who recorded this surreptitiously and gave it to you? And we'll charge that person and we'll work with you." And that's exactly what they're doing. But it's not just that particular piece of work product that I'm concerned about. I work at the White House, as you know, Cenk, and I have a hard pass to the White House. I have sources inside the Oval Office who give me information on those work devices. So this isn't just the local sheriff's office that we're talking about. We're talking about all the way up to the White House, where people's jobs are in jeopardy right now as being revealed as sources for journalism information. And work product is certainly a concern of ours right now as they continue to go through this equipment. We don't know if they've gained access to the iPhone, which had a password on it. We don't know if they gained access to the laptop either, but we have to assume that they did, and we have to assume that there are a lot of lives on the line, a lot of careers on the line, all the way to the Oval Office.
So look, this is a core constitutional issue because it's about freedom of the press, which is the First Amendment, and it is literal government oppression. But also it's scary because it could apply to anyone, because they didn't even have a warrant for your cell phone and they took it anyway. So is there any mechanism to force law enforcement in this case to follow the law immediately? Or can they go into anybody's home and go, yeah, I didn't have a search warrant for your phone or your computer. I don't care, I'm taking it anyway. And I'm gonna keep it and I'm gonna download all the information on it, and then maybe I give it back to you later, but so what? I already took the information. Is there anything we could do about that? Or can they just do that to anybody?
Yeah, so we have what we know, as we all know, is qualified immunity for law enforcement officers, which is a big thing that protects them and essentially says they can do whatever they want. There are civil penalties that can come down the line once the criminal proceedings have finished. But these criminal proceedings could go on for 2, 3, 4, or in the case of the trial that we're covering, which by no means amounts to the same, 8 homicides, has gone on for 6 years. So we don't know how long the criminal proceedings are going to go on, and we don't know how long they're going to hold that equipment. We don't know what they're going to do and what kind of weaponization they're going to do when they get that information, if they get it. And the only ramification to that is to sue them civilly, and we can't do that until the end of the criminal proceedings, and we don't know when that's going to be. And even if we did sue them, that doesn't mean we would prevail, and by then they already have access to the information that they wanted.
Yeah, this is absolutely outrageous, and this is a rare issue that is not political. It's not left or right. You can seize a non-political's person's phone or what files, anything else they want if this stands, right? Or they can seize a right-winger's phone or a left-winger's, but depending on who the sheriff wants to target. So which brings me back to their motivation. So I get it, their feelings were hurt that somebody recorded this when the judge ordered it not to be recorded. But do you think this is also a little bit personal? I mean, you guys sued the judge, and is this basically saying, you're not in charge, we're in charge, whether we're following the law or not, we're the ones with the badges and the guns?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, myself and 6 or 7 other media organizations in my publication, we sued in one case. And then in a second case, I sued personally myself, and it was that case that permitted the judge, where the appellate court ruled in my own favor, saying that the judge at the lower court had to hold hearings on if somebody could opt in or out from being recorded. They simply couldn't just say, no, I don't want to be on film. There had to be a reason, and the reason had to be, would it justify the impartiality of the case? And so when that court order came down, obviously my name was in the case caption because I was the only person who sued for that. The other organizations was afraid to get a bad ruling. We got a favorable ruling. And shortly after that, we became targets. And well, what do you know? I had a warrant for my arrest and my equipment was seized.
Absolutely outrageous. To this day, Derek faces 18 months in prison on a felony charge on a so-called crime that he most certainly did not commit, as the facts of this case prove easily and clearly. So, Derek, I guess one last question: is there any way that anybody can help you address this injustice, or you just have to wait through this multi-year court system?
Yeah, so that's the question everyone's been asking. We can apply all the local pressure we want to the local authorities from the national level, from the federal level, but the reality is it falls in the hands of the local prosecutor. And the prosecutor is the one charged with prosecuting the case that we were actually trying to cover. And he wasn't happy that we were trying to get access to that case. They opposed the cameras from being in the courtroom from the get-go, and he continues to oppose them. And of course, he has it out for the media, so it sounds. So I guess the best thing that people can do is share the link of this interview on their social media for their friends to see it, and just get the information out there. And hopefully the local authorities will do the right thing and follow the law. So far, they haven't done that.
All right, and everybody check out Scioto Valley Guardian. Derek is editor-in-chief there. Derek Myers, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.